It is finally complete. I've done it. I have done it. And for the reveal, I'm gonna switch positions real quick. Underneath this blanket is my life's work. Every Resident Evil video game ever made. This is my magnum opus. This is what my life has been leading up to until this point. Aside from opening my very own business, this is what my life has been consumed with for the past year. What you see here is every Resident Evil game released in the US and console only. This is every box art variation, deluxe edition, gold edition, special edition, collector's edition, even some items that I didn't need to buy for this collection, such as the chainsaw controllers, the limited edition Resident Evil 5 Xbox 360, and many other things that I probably didn't even need to include in this collection. This is the video that all of you that have subscribed have been waiting for, and it's finally here, right in time before Resident Evil 9. And like I said before, this is US release only and console only, so no PC games are not in here, and no, I don't have European and Japanese copies of all that, because then I would be a broke man. Also, as for the collector's edition, I'm not gonna spend another $5,000 just to get every collector's edition. All these big boxes down here, the Resident Evil 4 collector's edition has 3 different variants. I'm not gonna buy those. I did it for all of these, so I'm not doing it for those. I'm not gonna have a bunch of different statues taking up a bunch of space in where I live to get those. But all the different variations are here, except for the console variations, because there's no differences. But before we get into the bulk of this video, I want to show you some items that I have that I really don't need for this collection, but just some really cool Resident Evil items that I have that aren't games. And I have some really cool stuff that I've been collecting over the years. First things first, I have Resident Evil trading cards. I don't know if there's any listings on eBay right now for these, but these are some of the coolest things I've ever seen. I want to get them graded by PSA, but to show you better, let's take a look at them. These are all from Resident Evil 2, and we have Leon Kennedy, Leon and Claire, Leon, that one's holographic, Claire, again, holographic, Ada, Sherry Birkin, Chief Brian Irons, the biggest POS in Raccoon City, Ben Bertolucci, RIP, and back to Leon. Then we just have some more extras, like this copy of Nintendo Power. It has a promo for Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, along with some Donkey Kong and Animal Crossing stuff on there. But the only reason I have this is because if you notice in the top, it says Evil in America. And this is the promo for when Resident Evil Deadly Silence came out on the Nintendo DS. So I thought that was pretty cool. I also have one of the last Game Informers ever made before they stopped circulating these things. Since then, Game Informer is back, which I'm totally happy to have back. And it's a full picture. I think that's super cool. This is for the Resident Evil 4 remake. If you want to buy this for yourself, this is issue number 353. My copy does not have a sticker with an address on it because I bought this in stores whenever the remake came out. I don't know if you thought those items were cool, but what I'm about to show you gets a lot more cooler. So I also have the Resident Evil deck building game. I believe this game came out sometime in 2010, around that. It's based off the cards that are in here. I think it stops with like Resident Evil 5. But it is complete in box. I've never played it, but I do think this is a really cool item, and it's kind of expensive. I think open copies go for around 50 bucks, sealed go from like 80 to 100. If I'm not mistaken, that was the last time I looked at it. Granted, it's been a while since I've looked at it. Now this is where it gets really cool. So in here, we have a promotional poster of Resident Evil 6 that came from Walmart. So the one that I have is of Chris Redfield. As you can see, it says new release games on it. I would imagine this was like on an end cap in Walmart, but it is of Resident Evil 6. See the PS3, Xbox 360 logos at the bottom. This poster is from 2012. I think this is a really cool promotional poster that I have in the Resident Evil collection. Mine and my wife's goal is to buy a house this year, and whenever we have a house is when I will be able to properly display these things. And guys, it only makes sense. I'm saving the best for last. Next, we have another promotional poster from arguably one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. And I said arguably, I'm not saying that it is, but it is a promotional poster for Resident Evil 4. On this side, obviously it shows Leon getting cut by Dr. Salvador. And then on the back, It has Dr. Salvador creeping over the back of Leon. And this poster is from 2005. It is an original promo poster. Then this one's even cooler. Unfortunately, this one is not double-sided, but we do have an original promotional poster for Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Like I said before, whenever I get a house, this bad boy is going to be framed and displayed. And last but not least, if you've been subscribed to me for a while now, you may have seen this item before. I've only ever shown it one other time on my channel, but I think it is so cool. This is probably my most expensive Resident Evil piece that I have that's not a game. This is a steel, factory sealed, promotional t-shirt from 2005 whenever Resident Evil 4 first released. So it is true vintage now. It is 21 years old. As you can see, the Fruit of the Loom heavy tag on it. It has never been opened. Resident Evil 4 being one of the most iconic video games of all time. Forget about Resident Evil. It is one of the most iconic games of all time. And to have a piece like this, steel sealed. It is an extra large too, which is the best size. There's a part of me that wants to open this and wear it so bad. And I would if it wasn't sealed. And this bag isn't resealable. It's once I open it, it's been open forever. And I want to wear it so bad. But I also love having it like this for the collector in me. But yeah, I absolutely love this piece. Also, I am wearing this shirt, this limited edition Resident Evil shirt. This was only available for 72 hours on Graveyard Goods. This is not an ad, but if you haven't checked out Graveyard Goods, it is a really cool brand that I like. They post a lot of like retro shirts. This was only available for 72 hours. Most of their drops are limited release, then they're gone forever. This shirt came from Graveyard Goods. Now, the moment that you all and myself have been waiting for, let's start diving into the Resident Evil collection. I think the best way to go about this is probably look at the games by release date and by their respective console. So of course, we gotta start it off where the series started off, with the PlayStation 1. So I'm going to take these and let's get started with PS1. All right guys, and if I opened and went into high detail in all of these games, this video would be stupid long. So I will make a video on that in the future because I have all of these games, so there's going to be plenty of content that I make on it. And please let me know in the comments right now what all videos you would like to see me do with all of these games. Now for further ado, where the Resident Evil series started, Resident Evil 1. Releasing in 1996. The long box, mine is in super good condition. Also, every game that I have in my collection is all complete in box, so just know that. And then this game was so good that they had different versions released. This one at one point was more rare than the long box. This is the black label with this artwork. This is a rare cover art variation. Then we have the director's cut. This is the jewel case director's cut, super clean copy. Then we have the double disc director's cut that includes a demo of Resident Evil 2. I don't know if this released before or after Resident Evil 2 came out, but they definitely wanted to promote the next game in the series. So that's 4 copies of Resident Evil 1. This game was so good that not only did we get a director's cut, we got a greatest hits version of the director's cut, which is the cheapest way to get this game and arguably the best way to get this game because you can play on a DualShock controller on the PS1. So that means you can use your analog sticks. Then, what a lot of people would arguably say is the best title in this series, we have Resident Evil 2 on the PS1, the black label of RE2. And yes, just to show you, it is a dual disc. That opens up this way. And all of these games, I went off of price charting to find all the cover art variations. Granted, there were a few. Actually, there were probably at least 20 that weren't on price charting, so I really had to do a lot of research. Then, also on the PS1, we have the DualShock version of Resident Evil 2 that is also a double disc, along with the sweepstakes cover art variation of Resident Evil 2. Also, just to chime in here, my copy of Resident Evil 2 Greatest Hits is factory sealed, so I had to get it graded, and it came back a 9.8, which is a super good grade. But I probably should have bought an open box version of this game, but when I have it like this, I don't really think that I need it. But yes, nonetheless, I do have the Resident Evil 2 Greatest Hits as well. My copy just so happens to be factory sealed. Then, another great game in the series. The best way to play Resident Evil 3, the remake, just quite didn't do it justice. The Black Label Resident Evil 3 on PS1, along with the 2-disc version of Resident Evil 3 that includes a demo disc for Dino Crisis. Then, where the game was so good, we also got a greatest hits version of Resident Evil 3 just because of how well this game sold. And last but not least, the last Resident Evil game to release on PlayStation 1, Resident Evil Survivor. This game came out in the year 2000. Such cool cover art as well. Alright, that is one console down, only 19 more to go. And because of the rarity and niche-ness of these items right here, we're about to hit 5 consoles at once, so let's get into it. Now this is where it gets interesting. The only Resident Evil game to release on the Sega Saturn was Resident Evil 1, and it came in the Sega Saturn Big Box, which is how all these games released. My copy is so mint that it'll freshen your dang breath. A super cool collector's piece. I don't know if this is how I would choose to play this game, but nonetheless, I have the big box Sega Saturn Resident Evil. Then to keep the games in order, another very niche release, which was the only Resident Evil game to release on Nintendo at the time, releasing on the Nintendo 64, was Resident Evil 2. And of course, this game is complete in box with manual. This is also such a cool collector's piece. Playing Resident Evil 2 on the GameCube, you can't play with green blood on this one. So yeah, that was a really cool piece. Then arguably the most niche release of this game was Resident Evil 2 on the Game.com Tiger handheld. My copy is factory sealed. It is still in its little blister box. This is a really cool way to have this game. I might get this one graded in the future just because it's still sealed, but I do think that this is a super cool collector's piece. Then for the Sega console that got the next mainline entry, the Sega Dreamcast also had a release of Resident Evil 2. Very cool way to own this game. To stay on suit, the Dreamcast also got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. And it got Resident Evil Code Veronica. Now, every later release of Code Veronica, you will see an X next to Veronica. The Dreamcast is the console that we got the original Code Veronica on. And to stay in order of release date, the Holy Grail, if you want to see an in-depth video, I have it on my channel of me purchasing this item. We have, for the Game Boy Color, Resident Evil Gaiden. Aside from the Resident Evil 7 house, this is the most expensive item in my collection. This is what I sold a copy of Kuon on the PlayStation 2 for. I sold it to get this game right here. One of the coolest cover arts ever. I absolutely love having this in my collection. It is such a cool shelf piece. Resident Evil Gaiden. Guys, let's keep chugging along, shall we? And this next console is such a fun console and expensive console to collect for. No, I'm not talking about Wii and the DS. We're getting into GameCube. And also, just as an honorable mention, I do have the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller on the Nintendo GameCube as well. And these aren't necessarily in order of release, but in more so the order you should play the games. Not exactly, but pretty dang close. So on the GameCube, we have Resident Evil 0. This game released in 2002. And of course, this game sold very well. So we also got a player's choice copy of Resident Evil 0 on the GameCube. Then one of the, if not the best remake of any Resident Evil game ever, we have Resident Evil on the GameCube. This game still holds up beautifully by today's standards. And yes, it sold so well that it also got a later release of the player's choice. Then, what is so crazy to me, Resident Evil 2 got a GameCube release, but did not get a PlayStation 2 release for some reason, but we have the Black Label Resident Evil 2 on GameCube. And all of these games underneath here are pretty affordable. They're all like, I'd say $40 and less. Resident Evil 2 can get pretty expensive. Then we have another release of one of the original games on GameCube, Resident Evil 3. This game came out in 2003. I also don't know why they released this on the GameCube and not on the PlayStation 2, but it is on GameCube. Then the most expensive single game, you'll understand why I said that here in a second. The most expensive single game on the GameCube is Resident Evil Code Veronica X. If you want to play this game, definitely just get the PlayStation 2 release, because if you want to get this game, it's going to cost you around $200. Then, before the game released, we got a preview disc of Resident Evil 4. This was the playable demo that was not for resale. I don't know if this was in stores. I don't necessarily know how you got this, but this demo disc is actually more expensive than the actual copy of the game, which is still a really cool piece to have in the collection. Yeah. Just super cool. Obviously, it was a demo, so it did not come with a manual, but a really cool item to have in the collection. Then, one of the games that changed the course of gaming as we know it, Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. And this was the first initial release of this game. This game didn't come out on the PlayStation 2 till months after the GameCube release. So this game definitely helped drive up some sales for the GameCube. And as you know, that game sold so well, of course, it got a player's choice. And the first special edition of any Resident Evil 4, did get a special edition steelbook case that was a GameStop exclusive at the time. A really cool copy of the game with the laser cell and the Brady Games insert on the inside. I absolutely love this red tin. This is so cool. Then before we get into the last big box, there were two, and yes, I have both cover art variations of Resident Evil Pure Evil. This contains Resident Evil 1 Remake and Resident Evil 0. I don't know why they did two cover art variations, because that made it a lot more expensive on me. But we have this version with the characters of Resident Evil 0 on the front, and then we have the version that says Resident Evil 4 coming soon, January 2005. And I can't remember which one, but one of these has a sealed copy of Resident Evil 1 on the inside. Then, for the 10th anniversary of Resident Evil, coming out in 2006, we have the Resident Evil 10th Anniversary Collection on the GameCube. And this has Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 4 all on the inside. And let me tell you this box that it comes in is where the value comes from, because it is a lot more expensive to buy it this way than it is if you bought each one of these games individually. You could probably get all three of these games for under $100, but go ahead and expect to spend at least $200 just for this box that it comes in. All right, and that was GameCube. Now, for the best console of all time, the PlayStation 2. And of course, I have the PlayStation 2 chainsaw controller. I have a full video of me unboxing this and playing with it on my YouTube channel, so go check out that video. Then, in order of release, the first game that we got on PlayStation 2 for Resident Evil was Code Veronica X. And this is the copy with the barcode on the back, the initial release, along with, we got the 5th anniversary edition with a bonus Devil May Cry demo disc. Super cool copy of the game. And this game sold very well, so it also got a greatest hits version as well. Now we get into some exclusives that were only released on PS2. The first one being Resident Evil Dead Aim. This was the first rail shooter to release on PlayStation 2. And just a really cool game. I love that. I love the cover art for this one as well. This copy that I have is really, really minty also. Really cool item to have in your collection. Then introducing Alyssa Ashcroft, we have Resident Evil Outbreak, also only releasing on the PlayStation 2. She is the mother of Grace Ashcroft, who we will see in Resident Evil 9. And this game sold surprisingly well, so we got a greatest hits of this game also. And the reason mine is in this little plastic protector is because in pursuit of finding this game, the only way that I could find the gosh dang greatest hits of this is I had to get mine factory sealed. This copy is factory sealed. I might get this one graded in the future. It still has that little thing on the bottom. I can't remember the name of that, but Outbreak, greatest hits. Then also, only released on the PlayStation 2, which both of these games have grown tremendously in value just due to the protagonist of this game having bloodline in Requiem. Outbreak File 2, also only releasing on the PS2, a super cool game in the Resident Evil series. I've also said this before. These came out during the same time that the Resident Evil movie came out, so they use the same font for Resident Evil that is on the cover of the movie. And this one is super sick. This is a cover art variation that would be so hard to find. Go ahead, try. Go looking for it. This is Resident Evil Outbreak File 2, coming soon. I believe that this was literally has a sticker that says promotional artwork on the back. I would imagine that this is what was on the shelves in GameStop prior to the game releasing. So you already know there weren't many of these made at all. So of course, I had to add it to the collection when I saw it at a convention. If you want to go check out that video, go watch out me collecting Resident Evil games at a video game convention. So yes, that was super cool. Then in fall 2005, we finally got the long-awaited release of Resident Evil 4. Notice that the cover art is a lot different on this version compared to the GameCube release, where it has a blue background, GameCube has a red background. We got Resident Evil 4 on the PlayStation 2. Such a good game, oh my gosh. And of course, this comes as no surprise. We got a greatest hits version of this game because this game sold so freaking well. Then this is such a cool collector's piece. We have the Resident Evil 4 Premium Edition in a steelbook. Oh, this is such a cool game. I love this. Comes with a disc that says The Making of Resident Evil 4. I think this is awesome. I love having this in my collection. I just love steelbooks too. And the fact that you can put them side by side and it doesn't just have some random thing. It does say PlayStation 2 on the side. I love that. Then, just like the GameCube, for PS2, we got the Resident Evil Essentials Pack. And the reason I mentioned it about Code Veronica earlier, about having the barcode on the back, these games, all on the back, notice it comes with Resident Evil Outbreak, Resident Evil 4, and Code Veronica. If you notice, all of these games say part of a set. So if you ever buy this and want the true original form of this, make sure that they say part of a set and do not have a barcode if you want how these games originally came. They are all black label and all say part of a set. And in the pursuit of collecting this series, stuff like this is what made me want to blow my brains out, because I got this one and I have this one as well. And the reason I got this one is, if you can notice, it is a cover art variation. Notice that there is a hand holding Resident Evil Outbreak, and on this version, there is not a hand holding Resident Evil Outbreak. And the only way that I could find this version was to buy it factory sealed. So yes, this was way more expensive than what it needed to be, but I had to do it for the video. And that concludes PlayStation 2. The sun is going down, guys, and I'm losing my natural lighting, so I need to hop on the ball. And I could do really either one of these next because they are the same generation of consoles and released pretty much at the same exact time. So we're gonna do PS3 next, then Xbox 360. So on to PlayStation 3. All right, and now for my favorite entry in the series. I know it's controversial. Resident Evil 5. I absolutely love this game. This is one of the best co-op experiences I think that there is in gaming. Of course, we have it on the PlayStation 3. Then this game was so good that it got a greatest hits. Like I said, guys, I absolutely love this game. Then this was about to drive me crazy. This game got a gold edition. And notice, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see what I'm talking about. So we got the gold edition. Then there is a strange cover art variation, and notice that this has the PlayStation Move logo on it. Yes, this is just a sticker on the box, but once I push the games out, the PlayStation Move logo on the gold edition is also on the actual cover art. And this was not on price charting, so I'm lucky that I found out that this was a thing. Then it gets even crazier than that. There is a greatest hits version of the Gold Edition. Obviously, this game sold so well that not only did we get all these editions, we got a greatest hits of the Gold Edition. If you want to check this out in my Collector's Edition video, Resident Evil 5 did get a big box Collector's Edition. Next, we got a couple of the black sheep of the Resident Evil series. We have Resident Evil 6. This game is hated on a lot. I don't think it should get as much hate as it does. I do think that this game is a really fun co-op experience, but I would also only play this game if you have someone to play with. Then there is a Walmart cover art variation of this game. That's the only thing different about it. It is the exact same version. It just says bonus character decals for the Walmart edition. And yes, I have the character decals inside of it. That's what makes it special. Then, this game surprisingly sold really well. I actually think that this is the #2 most selling Resident Evil game, if I'm not mistaken. Fact check me on that. Yes, this game got a greatest hits as well. And then a really cool version of this game, we have the Resident Evil 6 Anthology, which is a really cool version of this game. It comes with downloads of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This game was so expensive back in the day, and this is just such a cool thing that I think that they did. So to be able to play all of these games on the PlayStation 3 was something super cool that I think Capcom did. And then this is something I collected that I probably didn't need to, but I did. This is the Capcom Essentials Collection, and the only reason I bought this is because it comes with a copy of Resident Evil 6. It does come with a Capcom bag, which I think is super cool. And on this disc, it has Mega Man, Devil May Cry, and Street Fighter. And then on this one, it comes with Resident Evil 6 and Dead Rising 2. So all because of Resident Evil 6 is why I picked this up. This is also another black sheep of the Resident Evil series, Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. This time period was just such a big time period for like action shooters. So that's what they were going with this game. Take this game for what you will. There were multiple copies of this. With this one specifically, there is a Best Buy limited edition that comes with 2 bonus weapons and 6 alternate costumes. Then, this game, it did sell, so it got a greatest hits. And finding the greatest hits for this game was about to be the death of me. I could only find one listing, and it was factory sealed. And this game did come with what I think is a really cool special edition. It came with a steelbook. The steelbook is actually really cool for this game. So yes, Operation Raccoon City did have a special edition. And releasing at the end of the PlayStation 3 life cycle, we have Resident Evil Revelations. There's no box art variations for that, along with Resident Evil Revelations 2, another game that there is no box art variation for. And this game came out in 2015, so there was already a PlayStation 4 release of this game as well. And just because this lines up with the PlayStation 3 life cycle, I also have all of the PSP Resident Evil movies. I didn't buy the actual movies, I just bought things that were released on console, and we're going to count PSP as a console. So we have Resident Evil Extinction, Resident Evil Degeneration, and Resident Evil Apocalypse. All on the PSP. And now, for the superior console of this generation, the Xbox 360. And just to show you guys, one of my favorite items in my collection, because this is my favorite game in the series, I do have the Xbox 360 Elite Limited Edition Resident Evil 5 Xbox 360. Alright guys, and we pretty much have the same song and dance for the 360. First, we have Resident Evil 5. This is the way that I played this game originally. I absolutely love this game. Like I said before, one of the best co-op experiences I've ever had. This game sold well. Yes, it got the platinum hits, and this case is, of course, the gray case. This one actually has a cover art variation. Notice how the disc looks on this one and how the cover art looks on this one. I guess this was a later release platinum hits, because notice they both say platinum hits, but you can see the difference on the spine and the front of the case. This one came in a green case, along with the disc being different on this one as well. This one, it has platinum hits in a big, thick gray area, and this one just says platinum hits right here. So I thought that was interesting. This was also another cover art variation that was hard to find. It did not have it on price charting. I just happened to come across it. And yes, Resident Evil 5 did get a gold edition on Xbox 360 as well, and it does not have any cover art variations like it did on the PS3. Same exact thing. In my collector's edition video, I have a full-length video of me opening this collector's edition along with the PS3 one. And just like PlayStation, we have Resident Evil 6 on the 360. There is also a Walmart bonus edition cover art variation. Yes, I have the figures in this one as well. And we also got a Platinum Hits bestseller of Resident Evil 6 on the 360. Along with, just like the PlayStation 3, we did get a Resident Evil Archives edition. But how this differs from the PlayStation 3 version, this one only comes with Resident Evil Code Veronica X, 4, and 5. Along with the Resident Evil Degeneration movie. So this one actually was different from the PS3 version quite a bit. I got it on PS3. They made one for the 360 as well. I did buy the Capcom Essentials, all because it has Resident Evil 6 on it. And this one was expensive because I had a hard time finding it. So I bought this one factory sealed. Now we get into back to the controversial releases. We have Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. Hey guys, let me interrupt for a second. If you're watching this video, I just want to say thank you, and for everyone that has subscribed for this journey. This series has quite literally changed my YouTube channel forever, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. But with all of the views that I've gotten just for my Resident Evil related content, long form and short form, I've gotten well over 1 million views, so thank you. But also, if just 10% of you would have subscribed from that, I would have over 100,000 subscribers. So this is me just chiming in here saying, will you please hit that subscribe button? Not only did this take a lot of time, but it took a lot of money too. So it would mean the world to me if you could just hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, that's how you do so. Once again, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and let's get back to the video. And just like the PS3, it did have a Best Buy limited edition. And it also had the special edition on 360 with the Steelbook. I've said it before, I'll say it again. At the end of the Xbox 360's life cycle, with 0 cover art variations, we have Resident Evil Revelations and Resident Evil Revelations 2. And you know it was getting near the end of the life cycle because these games did not come with box inserts. This was around that time period that we stopped getting manuals and nothing came on the inside, which to me is a tragedy. The collector in me absolutely hates that. But still, we do have physical games here, and these games just simply did not come with manuals. It's getting dark in here, guys, so I had to cut the above light on. Sorry if the brightness isn't as good as it should be. And I was debating on whether or not I should have done this before or after the Xbox 360 and the PS3. But now we're going to get into some more obscure stuff, which I think is cool. We're going to check out the Nintendo Wii and the DS handhelds. So to start us off, for the 10th anniversary of Resident Evil in 2006, we got Deadly Silence on the Nintendo DS. And all this was a port of the first Resident Evil game, which I do think is a really cool port of the game. I absolutely love the cover art on this, so it's a cool collector's piece. And then on the Wii, which is something really cool I think that they did, we have the Resident Evil Archives series. This is Resident Evil 0, along with there is a Resident Evil 1 on the Wii. Then, of course, it's on every other console. We do have the Resident Evil 4 Wii edition. And then, if you're a fan of rail shooters, we have the Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles. And there is a crazy cover art variation of this game. Yes, I have 2 copies. There is a cover art variation where one has the Wii logo on the spine and the other one does not. Don't ask me why, but there, and I honestly think that the one without the Wii logo on the side is the more common copy. The one with the Wii logo on the side is the rare version of this game. Then, another rail shooter, we have the Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles on the Wii. And there are scenes from this game that do appear in the Resident Evil 4 remake of Jack Krauser that are featured in cutscenes of this game. Then, releasing side by side with the release of Resident Evil 5, we have the Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D on the 3DS. All this is literally you play Mercenaries, and it is all Mercenaries missions from Resident Evil 5. Then, if I'm not mistaken, I think the original release of this game was on the 3DS. We have Resident Evil Revelations. And there is a crazy box art variation of this, which I'm sure a lot of you know of. There are no differences from this angle, but where the difference is on this one, they spelled Revelations wrong. They put the I before the T instead of after the T. So they put Resident Evil Revelations instead of Revelations. And then the only Resident Evil to release on the Wii U was Resident Evil Revelations. Alright, now that gets that out of the way. And since there's more cover art variations, I'm going to do PS4 next because I believe it's more exciting. So next, we're going to dive into Xbox One. Let's go. And for these, we're not going to go in order of release. We're going to go in order of the game number. So on Xbox One, we have the Resident Evil Origins Collection. This is a great game to have if you want to play 0 or the remake of Resident Evil 1. I highly suggest picking up this for Xbox or PlayStation 4 and checking out these games as soon as you can if you haven't played these. Then, of course, the renowned Resident Evil 2 remake. Such a phenomenal game. If you haven't checked this out yet, play it. 9's coming out soon, so you need to know how Leon's story started. Then we got a deluxe edition of Resident Evil 2, and there are cover art variations with this. Obviously, we have standard edition, deluxe edition, and there's a cover art variation of Claire on the front instead of Leon. It's actually not a cover art variation. This cover actually is reversible. So due to this cover being reversible, I felt obligated to buy 2 different copies of the same game so I can have 2 of the different cover art variations displayed at the same time. Then, of course, we have the Resident Evil 3 remake, not nearly as popular or renowned as the Resident Evil 2 remake. A lot of people say this was rushed, so the ideal way to play this game is the original. It still runs great on the RE engine, but we're definitely missing some key moments in the story with this remake. Then, of course, you have the port of Resident Evil 4 on the Xbox One. A great way to play this game. It is the original, so if you want to own this and you don't have original hardware, it is on the Xbox One and the PS4. Then, yes, it did get an Xbox One port as well. We have my favorite Resident Evil of all time, Resident Evil 5. You will be seeing another copy of this game later in the video, but the only reason it's not in this stack is all of these say Xbox One on it. Then, once again, we do have Resident Evil 6. It is on the Xbox One, and it says it includes all map and multiplayer DLC. Such a fun game to play through with a friend, just like Resident Evil 5. So, if you want to continue the Leon storyline before Resident Evil 9 comes out, this is the last time we've seen Leon. So, make sure to play this game before 9 comes out. Then, we have Resident Evil Revelations, also releasing on the Xbox 360, as well as the 3DS and the Wii U. Then, we have Revelations 2. Then this game is where we first saw the new RE engine, which was featured in the 2 and 3 remake, but the game that started it all in the modern day Resident Evils, we have Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. In my opinion, and I'm sure in a lot of other people's opinion, this is the scariest game in the Resident Evil franchise. This game was terrifying, but it sold great, so it got a gold edition. And it got a deluxe edition. On the Xbox One, you will see more of this on whenever we get to the Series X. And like I said before, all of these ones that I just did are all the ones that say Xbox One on the spine. There's a lot of the Series X ones that say plays on Xbox One. So if you see any cover art variations that aren't here, it's because I have them in the Xbox Series X section and not in the Xbox One section. So we'll get to those momentarily. All right, now for the console that I believe has the most Resident Evil games on it. I'm pretty sure anyway. It's dang close. I'm talking about PlayStation 4. And I'm sure you noticed earlier in the video, I don't want to take all of these games off and show you, but for the PS4, we have the Resident Evil 2 Collector's Edition, the Resident Evil 3 Collector's Edition, the Resident Evil Village Collector's Edition, and the Resident Evil 7 Biohazard Collector's Edition. Those Collector's Edition also released on Xbox One. Like I said, only did the PS4 version because I don't need to buy all these again. And if you want to see me unbox all of these, go check out the video where I bought every Collector's Edition of Resident Evil. I go into full detail of the contents inside of all of these Collector's Editions. And just because it's in the same life cycle as the PlayStation 4, even though it may not be in order, I want to go ahead and showcase this item. The only game that released on the PlayStation Vita, the only Resident Evil game that released on the PlayStation Vita was Resident Evil Revelations 2. Obviously, this handheld had a very short lifespan, and I own a retro video game store, and this is one of the most asked for handhelds that anytime I get it in, it sells out within less than a week. Revelations 2 on the PlayStation Vita. Now, by starting an order of the game number, just like on the Xbox One, we have the Origins collection on the PlayStation 4. This obviously had no cover art variations. Now, starting with the cover art variations, we have the Resident Evil 2 remake on the PlayStation 4, along with the Deluxe Edition on PS4, then the Deluxe Edition cover art variation on the PS4. And it's the same exact thing. As you can see on the back of this case, you can see where it is reversible. Then one thing we got on the PlayStation 4 that we didn't get on the Xbox One is a steelbook. The collector's edition of this game didn't even come with a steelbook, but the game released one. This steelbook is so rare, by the way. These things are so hard to find, and if you do find them, they're very expensive. The cheapest one I can find on eBay right now is $100, and it doesn't even come with a copy of the game. So, super happy to have this in my collection. It is very expensive. Then, we have the Resident Evil 3 remake on the PS4. And this one actually does have a cover art variation, or actually, I may not even call it a cover art variation. It has a case variation. There is a rare variation of this game called the red case error. This game did not receive a greatest hits, but there's a red case error where this game comes in a red case instead of a blue case. The true way to get this error version is by buying it factory sealed. That way you know it was a true error. I'm not spending the $160 to $300 that people have that listed for, so I just did it myself. Hate me all you want in the comments. I'm not spending that on just the standard version of this game to keep it sealed when it's just a case error. If it was a cover art variation, I would have done it truly, but I did it myself, so technically, I have the red case error. But, also, unlike Xbox One, Resident Evil 3 did have a steelbook. A beautiful steelbook for that matter. And same case scenario, the ones on eBay usually don't come with a copy of the game. So I had to buy copies of this game to complete the steelbook, but you see how crazy I am anyway, the fact that I've done this. Once again, we have the Resident Evil 4 original game on PlayStation 4. Just a port of Resident Evil 4 on the PS4. Great way to play the game. My biggest gripe about this game doesn't have anything to do with the gameplay. It's the fact that this game does not have a platinum trophy. What the heck? I'm a trophy hunter. I love my platinum trophies. This one has trophies, but not a platinum. So that's my only gripe to do with that. Then a beautiful remake. We have the Resident Evil 4 remake on PlayStation 4, along with Resident Evil 5 on the PlayStation 4. Then, of course, Resident Evil 6, one of the best-selling Resident Evils ever, surprisingly, on PS4, and this one does have a cover art variation. Resident Evil 6 on the PS4 did get a PlayStation Hits. Then, one of the most rare Resident Evils on the PS4, we have Resident Evil Umbrella Corps. The PlayStation 4 is a region-free console, so notice that this game does not have an ESRB rating right here. So this is technically the English version of this game because some do have a PAL logo, some do have a Japanese rating system right here. And this was a part of the Resident Evil 20th anniversary, as you can see that little stamp in the top left corner. And one of my favorite things about this game, it comes with a manual. It comes with a manual, and I won't show that code, but it does come with a box insert as well. And this one is reversible, but on the inside it shows the Japanese release. But like I said, this console is region free, so had to have this for the collection. Let me interject here for a second. We've gone over some of these games. I'm going back to film this. Resident Evil Umbrella Corps was a very interesting release in the Resident Evil series. This was an action shooter. It did have a single player mode. I've heard of people having a really fun time with this game, but it definitely wasn't very popular and it did not sell very well, which makes it as expensive as it is. I think buying this game, it's going to cost you at least $100. Then on the PS4 as well, we have the release of Resident Evil Revelations, along with Revelations 2. Then where the cover art variations step in again, we have Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, along with a PlayStation Hits Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. My copy is factory sealed because I could not find a regular version of that cover art variation. Then this was about to be the death of me. I had to buy this on Amazon from an independent seller. I couldn't find it on eBay, I couldn't find it on Mercari, I couldn't find it at a video game convention. I could. The only exception was I couldn't find a copy with this box insert. I had to find an independent seller on Amazon that had this with the box insert. So this one was about to kill me, but yes, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard had a deluxe edition on PS4 as it did on Xbox One. Biohazard also had a gold edition on PS4 as well. So that is 4 different cover art variations of Resident Evil 7. Then we have Resident Evil Village on the PlayStation 4. And it has some cover art variations as well, which are the gold edition. Once again, I have my copy factory sealed. And it also has the deluxe edition, which is factory sealed. This one is actually pretty expensive. I think this game price charts sealed for like $50. And if you want to get this game just complete in box without it being factory sealed, I think it's like $35. Also, RIP to Resident Evil Reverse, a very short-lived online Resident Evil hero shooter, if you will. Didn't have a physical release, but let me know in the comments if you remember or ever played Resident Evil Reverse, because there was a very short time span that you got to play this game. Alright, let's add these PS4s back. Oh. And since it's the same generation of console, we're going to go over these real quick. Next, we have the Nintendo Switch. Since it's in the same console era as the Xbox One and PS4, I figured I'd go ahead and show these next. And the only similarity that the Switch had that the PS4 and Xbox One had is the Resident Evil Origins collection. My copy is factory sealed because the only true way to get all of these games on the Switch is to get them sealed so you know that the inside code isn't used. So for this one, I believe the actual cartridge only contains Resident Evil 1, and then inside of here, there's a download code to Resident Evil 0. Actually, I just lied because it says it right here. Includes game cartridge for Resident Evil 0 and download code for Resident Evil. So the only way to make sure that you get both games is to buy it sealed, unless you have a very trustworthy seller that says the code's not been used. Then we have the Resident Evil triple pack. This copy isn't sealed, but I will say I bought it sealed, and I have been playing Resident Evil 4 on it, and I actually have not used the code, so this copy is still complete in box. And whenever we open it, you will see it is the cartridge for only Resident Evil 4, and it has a full game download for Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. So yeah, the Switch definitely varies from the PS4 and Xbox One. That's the only console that has the triple pack. And the only console that has the Resident Evil Revelations collection is the Nintendo Switch. And just like the other two, this one includes a game card for Resident Evil Revelations, but it has a download code for Revelations 2. So I know I'm beating a dead horse, but if you want to make sure that your copy of this game is truly complete, unless you bought it new, be sure to buy it from eBay or wherever you buy it sealed, so you know that you for sure get the other game included in this collection. So yep, that's it for Nintendo Switch. Time for the final stretch, guys. Since we did Xbox One before PS4, let's take a look at the Series X before we get to PS5. This is it. We can see the finish line. Alright guys, and I'm going to cover all of the side art. So this is what I was talking about earlier. These are all the ones on the side that just say Xbox instead of Xbox One. And you will see that there are games in here that also play on Xbox One, even though they're Series X. So let's dive into them. On Series X only. This one is just for Series X. The Xbox One actually didn't get a release of the Resident Evil 4 remake like the PS4 did. PS4 and PS5 both got a Resident Evil 4 remake, but only the Series X got a Resident Evil 4 remake. So of course, then guys, this is what I was showing you earlier. I included this into this section just because of my OCD where it only says Xbox on the side. But this Resident Evil 5 is actually on the Xbox One. I made a video of me finding this inside of GameStop, and the video actually, it was a YouTube short that actually got like 180,000 views because this is just a rare cover art variation that I found for Resident Evil 5. So even though it just says Xbox on the side, it is for Xbox One and not Series X, but that's why I included it into this section. Then the only release for the Series X that says Xbox on the side, it plays on Series X and Xbox One. We have the Resident Evil 7 Biohazard Gold Edition for the Series X / Xbox One. Then, I know this is a reoccurring theme, but Resident Evil Village, this is the copy for the Xbox One and Series X. It's in this section because of the spine. I'm not going to say that anymore. Resident Evil Village for the Series X, along with the Gold Edition of Resident Evil Village for the Series X. And of course, just like PS4, the Deluxe Edition of Resident Evil Village for the Xbox Series X. There we go. This is it, guys. Final stretch. This is the finale. This is PlayStation 5. And as you can see down here, I do have the Resident Evil 4 Collector's Edition for the PS5. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe that Resident Evil Village did have a Collector's Edition for PS5 as well. Mine's for the PS4, but I can't remember, even though I probably should. Let's finish this thing off, shall we? That's what she said. And to give us a proper send-off, I'm going to switch things up on how I do the PS5. We are going to do this in the order of which the game's released, just because I have a really cool item at the bottom. So on PS5, we do have a Gold Edition of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. This is the only version of Resident Evil 7 that released on the PS5. My copy is factory sealed. Then after Resident Evil Biohazard released, we got the release of the Resident Evil 2 remake. And this little thing that GameStop does, they put this sticker on it. So this version is technically factory sealed. Whenever they sell you a new game and it doesn't have the actual sealing on it, they put this sticker on it to tell you that it's sealed. I hate this sticker. I would rather have a sealed copy, but it is what it is. So technically, this version is sealed, but we have the Resident Evil 2 remake on PS5. Then, like I said, in order of release, we have the Resident Evil 3 remake on PS5. And yes, this has a box insert. Tell me who remembers Resident Evil Resistance, another short-lived online Resident Evil game. Something in the Resident Evil series that just feels like a fever dream. After the Resident Evil 3 remake, we got the release of Resident Evil Village. And yes, PS5 did get its standalone version of this. And it was such a good game that it got a Gold Edition, which includes the Ethan Winters expansion pack, Trauma Pack, and Resident Evil Reverse, another fever dream, and the Resident Evil Village Deluxe Edition, which has the Trauma Pack and Reverse in it as well. Even though one came with the Collector's Edition, separately I do have the Resident Evil Village Steelbook. One of these did come with the Collector's Edition, but I have it separately as well. I would include it in the PS5. The most recent release we've gotten of a Resident Evil game is the Resident Evil 4 remake on PlayStation 5. This one did not come with a box insert, but I bought this game brand new. This is actually my receipt from GameStop when I bought this. Back when I had a full-time job, I literally snuck out of work without telling anybody. I can't get in trouble now because I don't work for them. But I snuck out of work and bought this game at GameStop and ran by my apartment and started downloading it so it would be ready when I got home. I was so excited for this remake. And to top everything off, to give a cool final send-off, I have a Resident Evil 4 remake, factory sealed, signed by Nick Apostolides, the voice of Leon in the Resident Evil 4 remake, and he wrote, "To Bailey, Leon," and then that is his autograph. Like I said, it's factory sealed, and I got it graded by CGC just because I don't want that signature to rub off. It says unverified signature, but this past year at Southeast Game Exchange, he was there. I got this signed in person. So only me knows that that's an authentic signature, but I have a video to prove it, so I was there. This is something that's never going to leave my collection regardless, just because it says to Bailey. One of the coolest pieces in my collection. And this is the final game that we've gotten. So let me know down in the comments right now how excited you are for Resident Evil 9 Requiem. Alright guys, not only is that every Resident Evil item in my collection, that is every Resident Evil game ever made. Console and US release only. I've had a lot of people commenting about the European, Japanese release and all of these different collectors or whatever. That's everything. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please, please, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite part was. And guys, I have all of these. Let me know what other videos you would like for me to film with these. I believe the next video I'm going to film is me going through all of these and ranking them from cheapest to most expensive. So if you want to buy any of these for yourself, you'll have an idea of what it would cost you. And if there's any other thing you want to see, please let me know in the comments. If you're also excited for Resident Evil 9, we're in February, guys. We're less than a month away. I cannot wait for that. And if you want to see me do anything with Resident Evil 9, let me know that as well. I've been working on this video forever. I can't believe that I just filmed it. I was so nervous. Hopefully I didn't disappoint and I showed you guys everything you want to see. And if I didn't, like I said before, let me know what you want to see in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you all so much. You all have made my dreams come true by being a YouTuber. I literally get paid for my videos now, which is insane. And here's the road to 100,000 subscribers. We're a quarter of the way there. Thank you. I love you guys. And I will see you in the next video.